Hello there. This is Eunice, the author of Triplehood, the three P's of dealing with childhood trauma. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I started reading my book uh, in June, and today is the last reading for this summer 2024. If you are interested in having a copy for yourself or if you want to get it for someone, it's available on Amazon. Triplewood contains true stories and true solutions for childhood trauma and adverse experiences in life. This life is unfair. This life um, is full of challenges every day. There will always be challenges. But how do we deal with challenges of life? Triplewood contains some strategies to help navigate challenges in this life. This is a contains story of separation, parental separation and divorce, and the effect on the children. If you are a parent going through separation with your spouse, you might want to get a copy of Triplehood and read the experience of someone, Bayonle, that's her parent divorced when she was a toddler. You might want to read about the life of Bayonle and other characters in the book. So I'm going to start reading from page 32, second to the last paragraph. The Olusholas were Bayonle's second floor neighbors. Mr. Olushola was an elementary school teacher, while Mrs. Olushola was a petty trader. They were the first family on the floor to buy a television. Their TV antenna was attached to the balcony rail, and they would have to adjust it periodically to get good reception. Their living room was usually packed full during soccer season, especially during the World Cup tournament. The adults sat around the dining table and on the two sofas, while children would sit on the floor. Every now and then, you could hear people screaming, "It's a goal!" when their favorite team scored, and "Oh no!" if they missed a shot. Some folks would get really into it and put their hands on their head and stand very close to the TV in anticipation of a goal. Of course, fans of the winning team would always taunt those of the losing team. No one could take a nap when the games were on. If their team won, the adults would embrace and shake hands, while the children would jump up and down through the whole house. They would chant, "Oshe, Oshe, oh, Oshe, oh, Oshe, Baba," meaning thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Father. Mr. Olushola would then play his favorite artist's records, Sir Shina Peters, Bob Marley, King Sunny Ade, and Michael Jackson. The noise from the Olusholas would wake even a deep sleeper in no time. Bayonle wasn't a big sport fan, but she liked to watch TV series and soaps at the Olusholas. Mrs. Olushola was fond of Bayonle. She always said that every day Bayonle was the first person to buy items from her. Then that day would be a big sales day. Subsequently, Mrs. Olushola cultivated a routine of giving Bayonle money in the evening to buy biscuits or other snacks from her the next morning. This singular act made Bayonle feel good about herself. Although she didn't consider herself a superstitious person, she thought of the good luck she brought to Mrs. Olushola's business as more than a mere coincidence. Was it a sign she had good fortunes inside her after all? She reflected on this many times. Maybe eventually her future could be great. Unfortunately, a troubled young adult lived in the same house. His name was Ola. He lived with his brother, Mr. Folahan, for about 3 years while he completed high school. He had been struggling in school in his hometown. So his family had decided he should go live with Mr. Folahan, who was a teacher. Ola was 18, Bayoni was just 14 at the time. Ola would always brag to her about how he was sleeping with other girls in their neighborhood. This was his way of sensitizing her. He would often come to her room to seduce her when no one was home. He would expose himself in front of her and he ejaculated on her twice. He even attempted to rape her 3 times. The third time, her adrenaline soared. She was ready to fight her way to freedom. She determined to put an end to Ola's lustful behavior. She left a bite mark on his left cheek as she pushed him to the floor. Does this resonate with you? Though Bayole tried to keep Ola's lustful behavior a secret for a while, she finally reached a point where she couldn't hold it anymore. It felt like she was about to explode, but she couldn't tell her father. First, she feared raising the alarm would come back to bite her somehow. Second, she felt he would blame her. Bayonne would discover much later that the fear of being blamed for being the cause of sexual abuse has kept many victims mute. Finally, after being hesitant for so long, Bayonne confided in Mrs. Olushola. She told the older woman of the bite mark on Hola's cheek. It was evidence of Bayonne's truthfulness. Mrs. Olushola confronted him and he could not deny it. That was the end of him sexually exploiting Bayonne. To her, this was a triumph. At last, she was strong enough to fight for herself and speak up. Although Mrs. Olushola wasn't an attorney or an authority figure, Bayonle still found her voice through her. Michael traveled to their hometown quarterly, leaving Bayonle in the care of neighbors, though she still slept in her home room when her father wasn't in town. After the incident with Ola, she became more cautious of her security. She would double check that the door and the windows were locked before she went to bed, and then she would wake up in the middle of the night to check again. Bayonle didn't want anything to jeopardize her dreams of going to post-secondary school. From what she knew, pregnancy would mean the end of her education. She had seen teenage mothers in the neighborhood, and that is the last thing she wanted to be. She just couldn't see herself pregnant at that stage of her life, so she avoided boys like the plague for a few years. Does this resonate with you? Buki, an acquaintance of Bayonle, was 15 when 2 armed men approached her around 10 p.m. on her way home from her mother's grocery store. It was late at night. The world was dark and there were no street lights on. There had been a power outage. One of the men put a knife to her throat and threatened to kill her if she made noise, while the other one covered her face with a blindfold. They carried her to a nearby bush and raped her. Buki did not tell her parents or anyone else. She even had an aunt that was a registered nurse in their local hospital who could have easily taken her to the emergency room for a rape kit. But Buki didn't tell her either. She thought no one would believe her. Buki lived with this trauma. She suffered in silence for a long time. She became withdrawn and would stay in her room for long hours on weekends. She skipped school or would leave the house in the morning at the same time as her younger sister, who was in elementary school. When Buki just couldn't face school, she would skip and go to an uncompleted building near her house. There, she would hide for a couple of hours, waiting for her parents to go to work before she would run back home. Initially, her parents thought she was acting weird due to puberty, but over time, her symptoms became psychosomatic. She suffered constant headaches, lost weight due to her poor appetite, and endured awful abdominal pain. Her parents eventually took her to the hospital after they had tried all they could at home without success. When Buki was diagnosed with depression, her parents couldn't put their finger on why their daughter was depressed. Finally, after a lot of digging by a psychiatrist and some therapists, the truth came out. It was tragic, but it was a relief for her parents to finally know the origin of Buki's malady. The relief was short lived. They were confused. They thought they were good parents and they struggled to understand why their daughter wouldn't come to them when she was troubled. After some self reflection, they saw a few lapses in their parenting style and decided to fix them. Research has shown that 53% to 55% of victims of sexual abuse don't tell their parents because they are ashamed and embarrassed. Some children don't know how or when to talk about the abuse. Some believe nothing can be done about it, so why tell someone? In Buki's case, she was blindfolded and raped by strangers, so she was sure she would not recognize them to identify them. So why tell when nothing can be done about it? Does this resonate with you? Then there are mommy issues. There were things Bayonne believed she could have been very good at if her mother had been in the picture. Motherly advice and guidance would have helped Bayonne better navigate puberty. There are so many things girls learn from their mothers that Bayonne missed out on because she didn't have Antonia in her life. Bayonne's father, Michael, couldn't wear both a mother's and a father's hat. Certainly not when he was more of a grandfather than a father to her due to his advanced age. Bayonne always wished Antonia was there to teach her about those issues unique to girls. She would have loved to have Antonia teach her about personal grooming, fashion, puberty, interpersonal relationships, even mundane things like cooking. Bayonne always wondered if her personality might have been different if she had grown up in a peaceful home with both her parents. Eventually, over time, she came to accept that she would never know. Bayonne experienced abandonment and low self esteem growing up. She lacked social skills, which she believed her mother could have instilled in her. She didn't have what other girls her age had: nice clothes, accessories, and such. Things a mother would look after in an ideal situation. Moreover, there was no connection whatsoever between her and Antonia. This ended up affecting her relationship with her peers. She often felt they could not understand what it felt like to be in her shoes. There was always a hole inside her, one she kept trying to fill, as we will later see in the book. This is the end of chapter 4 and the end of the book reading for summer 2024. If you want a copy, it's available on Amazon. I want to appeal to parents going through separation or divorce. Please prioritize your children. Don't involve your children in your drama. Make sure your children are well taken care of. This is very, very important for their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Until I see you again, enjoy the rest of your summer. Bye-bye.